Hello and welcome back to Firestorm Games, and in this video we'll be showing you how to paint the Foetid Bloat Drone from the Death Guard, and we'll be using the Citadel range of paints to do so. Now before you can begin painting your miniature, you first of all need to prime it. For this we've used a black spray prime, and over the top of that we've used Games Workshop's Death Guard green spray in order to get the base colour that we want for this tutorial. Now in order to assist in the painting, I've part assembled this miniature. I've basically assembled the entirety of the bloat drone, but kept the weapon options separate. This will leave the bottom of the miniature much more free and much more open for painting later on. After priming, the first task is to dry brush over the Death Guard green that we applied in the priming stage, and for this we'll be using Ogryn Camo. Now in order to dry brush, take a relatively large brush, dip it in the Ogryn Camo and remove most of the excess paint onto a tissue or a spare piece of paper. Then lightly drag the brush over the surface of the armour to bring out all of the details and the raised sections. The next areas of the bloat drone to tackle will be the fleshy areas. We want to start off painting these areas with a base coat of Celestra Grey. Now for all of the base coats I'll be using in this tutorial, you want to create a mixture of 1 part paint to 1 part water. Apply this over the miniature, allow it to dry thoroughly, and then apply a second coat over the top. This will give us the best coverage possible without obscuring the details by applying the paint too thickly. So using the Celestra Grey, you want to use it to paint all of the exposed flesh, which will mainly be on the rear of the miniature, but it may be around the mouth port as well as some pipes hanging from beneath. Once all of the flesh has been painted using Celestra Grey, the next task is to paint all of the bony protrusions and teeth on the miniature using Rakarth Flesh. In this next step, I'll now be painting any tentacles or tongues that the bloat drone may have, as well as some of the pipes that hang from beneath the miniature as well. Now we want to paint all of these areas using Emperor's Children. As Emperor's Children is not a base paint, you may need to apply 1 extra layer when painting it in order to get a really nice and even coverage. The next area of our bloat drone to tackle will be any of the corrugated pipes that are either emanating from beneath or around the weaponry, and for this we want to use a base coat of Stegadon Scale Green. The next paint that I'll be using will be Khorne Red, and I'll be using this to base coat the glass lenses at the front of the bloat drone. So now that the majority of the matte paints have been tackled, we can now move on to the metallic paints. And the first one I'll be using will be Leadbelcher to paint all of the silver metallic areas on the miniature. Now be very careful when painting with metallics, as you don't want to overspill onto the areas that we've already painted, as metallic paints can be quite tricky to paint over if you do overspill. Now the silver metallic areas on this miniature are quite numerous, so make sure you check out some of the photography or the 360 shot at the end of this video to find out the areas that you should be painting with Leadbelcher. With the steel areas completed, we can now move on to painting the brass areas, and for this I'll be using Balthasar Gold. Now the final base coat to apply to this miniature is for the various drops of ichor that are hanging across the miniature, and for this we're going to be using a base coat of Moot Green. So with all of the base coats completed, we can now move on to washing our miniature. Now the first wash I'll be applying will be one of Reikland Fleshshade, and I'll be applying this to all of the areas that we painted with Celestra Grey. Now you'll notice that when the Reikland Fleshshade is applied over the Celestra Grey, it will give us the effect of putrid and pallid flesh. This technique is not only a great way to represent the flesh of your Nurgle followers, but it's also a really quick and easy way to get the flesh colour as well. Continuing with our washes, I'll now be applying a wash of Nuln Oil over the areas that we painted with Stegadon Scale Green. This wash will not only darken the colour of these areas, but also help to bring out the detailing by flowing into the recesses and enhancing the shading. The final step in painting our bloat drone is to wash over the remaining areas using Agrax Earthshade. Now this wash will have a number of different effects depending on where you apply it. By applying it to the metallic areas, we'll get the effect of rust and oil which is built up over the surface of these areas. For the rest of the miniature, it'll help to continue that decayed Nurgle look, as well as flowing into the recesses and really helping to bring out the detail. And here you can see the completed Foetid Bloat Drone. You can find a full list of the paints used in this tutorial along with the order that they were used in the description below. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more, do give us your suggestions about what other miniatures you would like to see us quickly paint. And finally, the miniature and all of the paints used in this video can be found on the Firestorm Games web store for 10% less than the RRP. And you can find a link to Firestorm Games on the screen now, as well as the description below. So a huge thank you from us for watching this video, and we'll see you again on Firestorm Games.